Are you asking me questions or I was just speaking?
Just briefly tell me what you went through there.
Okay.
I love watching old footage of rugby from the 70s or 80s. It was just such a different game. Everything was so loose. Everything was so kind of like wild and just rough. But also all the players were they were so small compared to where they are now.
This is great stuff. Phil Bennett covering. It's gonna go. Brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. Good goals. Great dummy. Still hit by Pinnell. This is Gareth Edwards. A dramatic start. What a score.
Just never gets old watching that.
So why were they so much smaller back in those days? Well, quite obviously, it was the amateur era. These guys all had other jobs. So they were bakers or teachers or butchers or bankers or accountants. They had other things to do. So they didn't really have the time to go and pump iron every single day or work on their strength and conditioning. Plus, back in those days, there wasn't really a culture of doing this stuff, unlike there is today.
Back in those days, the game of course wasn't as structured as it is today. I mean, in order to make the big teams, you just kind of had to be, a bit of a hard bastard who could play a bit, rather than the focused athletes you have to be today. The set pieces in rugby nowadays are vital, so is retaining possession, and obviously having players that you can use in order to create the phases and go up the field with momentum in a very structured sense. Plus, it's a well-paying profession, so naturally, all those looking to make it to the highest points of the game are going to do whatever it takes in order to get there. And that means putting on 20 kilograms of muscle over a few years. So be it, I guess. But when does this process to excellence begin? And what are the key factors to consider?
Well, I'm going to talk to Wayne Taylor about that. He's the man when it comes to high performance, conditioning, strengthening, everything that takes your body from kind of how I look right now into, say, I don't know, Jesse Creel or some other guy who's really strong.
Or me.
Or Hovo. Not Hovo.
One of the big things we look at for preparing our professional rugby players is training age. So if you start playing professional rugby at 23, at 26 you still only have a 3-year training age. So to try and maximise your opportunity, if they're good enough at 20 or 21 to play professional rugby, we need our hands on them 3 or 4 years prior to that. So the essential thing going through their teen years, if they're keen on getting fitter and stronger, is training movement patterns, not concentrating on heavy weights, not a bodybuilding and mass building exercise, but more making them stronger in movement patterns. And as they mature, their muscles will grow and they're lifting heavier weights. They will start to get the athletic build that we want. One of the key ingredients is we need to be generating power from the ground. If you're not on your feet, you're not in the game. What we've seen in professional rugby is that the seasons have got longer, there's bigger demands on players' bodies, the travel aspect as well, which retards recovery. So there's a lot of consideration around recovery strategies, managing bodies, and then also smart programming. So you see, even in the All Blacks now, some players returning back 2 or 3 games into Super Rugby, or having a lapse of time going into the off-season of Super Rugby because they need to have that time out. So the smart science is about the number of games that they play, strategically where are we going to look after their bodies, and then what are we going to do to reduce the load, particularly on those players that are getting a lot of minutes and a lot of collisions. So the number of tackles and collisions they have has a massive effect on their ability to recover.
Tails is such an incredibly knowledgeable guy on this subject. I think I'm going to try to organize a full podcast just to kind of really cover it. But I think just to wrap it up on this video, I asked him one more thing, and that is which country is getting it right in a rugby sense when it comes to strength and conditioning. Of course, there were no real surprises with his answer.
Look, I think in Test rugby at the moment we're seeing a lot of professionalism around the teams. I speak from probably an inside perspective from New Zealand rugby. I think it's been very well managed in the way that they've managed their players, and the understanding that you can't have them at 100% all of the time, and we need to make sure that our second and third string players are capable of Test rugby. South African teams are getting a lot smarter, the Lions particularly, in the way that Doc Rob Collins is managing that process and looking after the players. We're seeing that in their performance. There's a lot of sports science all around the world. The Australians have a lot amongst them, the England team as well. So at the end of the day, it comes down to often how much talent you have and your ability to rest players, and how far is the step between your second and third string players as to, in top test matches, do you have that ability? And I think the All Blacks are very fortunate in that situation as well. And it's exciting what's happening with the Springboks and the sports science that's being now implemented with them and what they're doing with their players.
Pretty grim week weather-wise, but that's okay. We're actually pitching on a whole bunch of new work at the moment, which is really exciting and indoors orientated.